Let's talk all things about a feasibility report for self-storage. Hello, my name is Mark Helm. I'm the author of Creating Wealth Through Self-Storage, and I'm the creator of the Quick Start Academy. And what I do is I support the small investor who wants to get in the self-storage business or who wants to grow their self-storage business, strategically do so in a way that creates true wealth in a fulfilling career. And I was recently asked by Inside Self Storage to write an article on all things feasibility report wise, and especially given where we are. I'm recording this around 2020, October, last quarter, and I want to talk about feasibility reports, especially today. Now, if I had a soapbox and I was standing on it and I was preaching at you, what I have been preaching over the last 5 years has been, if you're bringing any space at all on, any space at all, or you're repositioning a self-storage facility, get a feasibility report. Period. It's never been more important than it is today. The first thing you should know about feasibility reports in the self-storage industry is we're very lucky. No other feasibility report for any other product type that I know or have ever seen can be as accurate as the ones for self-storage. Why? Well, no one drives across town to rent a self-storage facility because they think the doors look cool or the sign looks nice, or they recognize the name. People rent storage where they live or where they work. And we know what our market area is. For example, in our portfolio, about 86% of our customers live within 3.2 miles of our facility. Some facilities further, some closer, it just depends. The feasibility report will tell you what your market area and market size is and how many people are in your market area. So I can point to where my customers are. I can target marketing directly to where our customers are. And then it's not that complicated to quantify what the current supply is in that market area. How many facilities, how many square feet of self-storage are there and or coming on or likely to come on. Then you just apply a number. Right now the metric is square feet per capita. And depending on where you are in the country, the average is 7.5 to 8.5 square feet per capita. We live and die by these feasibility reports, and they tend to be very accurate for self-storage. Office, retail, apartments. People will drive all over town. People will go to regional malls. We drive to shop at a mall 2 counties over sometimes if we want to go to an outlet mall. You don't do that for self-storage. Now, I've seen a lot of feasibility reports, some good, some not so good. So how do you select a provider? Well, first of all, I would recommend using a SSA or ISS approved vendor who does and specializes in self-storage feasibility reports. They're not hard to find. They're the vendors on the ISS website and the SSA website. I also have on my resource page at creatingwealththroughselfstorage.com a list of people that I've used for feasibility reports. My suggestion is ask for a sample of a feasibility report one of the providers has done. And what would you be looking for? Well, the answer is simple: data. You want good, reliable data. Now, I've seen some very simple feasibility reports where it's just population, current supply, here's the number per square foot. Here's the per square foot capita number. You decide. And I've seen other reports that go into a lot of detail. What type of detail? Well, for example, how did you determine the market area? Was it just a 135 mile radius? That works well in a lot of facilities, but not in all facilities. For example, our hometown, Louisville, Kentucky, is on a border, and I had one of our projects was a quarter of a mile from the river. So literally, the vast majority of a radius wasn't going to be in our market area. We ended up having to adjust the market area to reflect where the expressways were, where the natural boundaries were, and drive times. Ask your provider, how did they determine the market? Was it just applying a radius? Did they also apply drive time? Did they determine what was the best way to determine that particular facility or that particular location's market area? Ask them and find out. Many just apply a radius. What if your property, half the radius is out on the ocean? What do you do then? Do you adjust it to drive time? Ask your provider how they'll deal with that. Here's an example in one of our feasibility reports for a project we did in Florida. What the provider said was, a drive time map has been reviewed. However, demand analysis is based on a radius rather than drive time, as this appears to be the norm in this market. So that tells me that they looked at how to determine what the market area was. And look closely at some of their assumptions. For example, did they, if included in the feasibility market area was a competing facility, and that competing facility has expansion land, did they assume that that facility is going to expand, and did they include that expanded square footage in the calculation of the supply for the area? Find that out. That could make a huge difference. The vendor that we use a lot will assume that they're going to expand at some point, and they will include that square footage. Also, did they include the entire square footage of the facility 3 miles away, or did they only include part of it? Because that facility 3 miles away, its market area, not all of its market area, may overlap into your market area. Was there an adjustment for that? I always make sure that the person doing the feasibility report just didn't accept national data. In other words, if the national data says 7.4 square feet per capita is the national average, that's very different in Texas than it would be in Idaho or it would be in Florida. Did they look at what is the benchmark data for that state and that local region? Do they have that information included too, or did they just apply national benchmarks? So one of the vendors that I use will usually apply 3 different demand models and then pick which one they think is more applicable for that particular facility. For example, one demand model we've talked about. What's your population in your market area? What is the current supply? What is the square feet per capita per person? Another demand model is what is the square feet per household? You can get 2 very different answers that way. Sometimes they'll use demand model number 3, which is a capture ratio. Out of a certain population, what percentage of that population can self-storage facilities capture? Look and see what was the demand model metric that was used and why did they choose that one? Mostly it's going to be square feet per capita, but look and see if there was any thought put into any other way of creating a demand model. Ultimately, what we're looking for, a good feasibility report will inform us on the health of that submarket and can that submarket absorb new space? And if it can, how fast? Very often, these feasibility reports will even give you, or at least point you in a direction of the optimal unit mix. The submarket likes climate control, small climate control, or this submarket will absorb large non-climate control units the fastest. Very often we're adjusting our unit mix based on the information we get back from the feasibility report. Remember, feasibility reports are not an exact science. There's an art to them, but they tend to be pretty accurate. because you know where your market is, you know where your customers are, and you can see what your current customer base is already doing and already paying. Try not to cheap out. You're very often spending millions of dollars, and you want to get a good feasibility report with a lot of information. Now, if we have a person doing a feasibility report and they start collecting the data and it's pretty obvious to them this is not going to be a good place to put a facility, very often they'll call and tell me, charge me for the work they've done and not finish the report. See if that's an option for you. But go on and get a full feasibility report. You want them going to that market area. You want them going to see the competition, analyzing the competition. Again, if you're spending millions of dollars, don't try to cheap out on a cheap feasibility report. Get a good one. So we're fortunate to be in an industry that can supply such good critical information if we're trying to reposition or add space in a sub-market. Take advantage of that. As a small investor, we're very lucky. My relationship is I live and die by those feasibility reports, and most of them have been very, very accurate. So get a good feasibility report if you're bringing any square feet on. There's no reason that you need to be bringing more square feet into a sub-market that's already oversupplied. That is a formula for disaster. You do take some simple, strategic steps in getting in or growing your self-storage business. You'll have a career that will provide you income for years to come. Nothing is better than the self-storage business. Just be smart, be strategic, get a feasibility report. My name's Mark Helm. I'm the author of Creating Wealth Through Self-Storage, and I'm the creator of the Storage World Analyzer. That's the financial analysis modeling tool that we use. And once I get that feasibility report back, very often I'm adjusting stuff like the unit mix on the expansion, or I'm adjusting the absorption based on the feasibility report, how fast it'll rent up. And I look at best case scenario, worst case scenario. We use that tool literally every day. If you're using Excel, great, but I invite you to explore the Storage World Analyzer, storageworldanalyzer.com. Thank you very much. I look forward to being with you next week.